It was 3:33 in the morning when I was awakened by a presence in my room. My stigmata burned intensely, more than usual. As I opened my eyes, I saw a column of light piercing through the darkness. Within this light stood an angel, his face grave with concern. "Padre Pio," he said, "the Lord has sent me to reveal what happens during the sacred elevation that souls must urgently know. What I witnessed that night haunts me still, and I must share it with you before it's too late." The angel transported my spirit to a church during Holy Mass. As the priest prepared for consecration, I could see what mortal eyes cannot. Legions of angels descending, surrounding the altar in concentric circles of light. They fell prostrate as the bread and wine transformed into Christ's body and blood. But what shocked me most was not the heavenly host, it was what happened in the congregation. As the priest elevated the sacred host, I saw divine light pour forth like a waterfall of grace. This light, this pure healing river of mercy, flowed toward every person present. Yet something devastating occurred. For most souls in attendance, these graces bounced away, unable to penetrate their hearts. There was an invisible barrier around them. Some were surrounded by dark clouds of distraction. Others had what appeared to be scales over their spiritual eyes. Many had their interior gaze turned completely away, focused on worldly concerns. The angel spoke gravely. "This is the tragedy happening at every Mass across the world. The most powerful moment of divine visitation passes unnoticed and unreciprocated. The portal of divine mercy opens for mere seconds, yet souls squander this opportunity through ignorance or neglect." I watched as one particular man sat with arms crossed, his mind dwelling on business matters during this sacred moment. The graces destined for him collected around him, but could not enter. Even more disturbing, small shadow-like entities gleefully gathered these rejected graces, carrying them away while whispering, "Another day, another wasted opportunity." The angel said, "For each elevation where a soul remains closed, spiritual protection weakens. Heaven's gifts lie unaccepted. Prayers that could have been answered remain unfulfilled." I wept at this sight and cried out, "Lord, what must be done? They do not understand what they're rejecting." The angel replied, "You must tell them, urgently, before the coming spiritual darkness makes it even harder for souls to recognize Christ in the Eucharist. This is why I come to you today with such urgency in my heart. What I learned that night changed forever how I experienced Holy Mass. And it will change yours too if you heed these words." When the priest raises the sacred host, something monumental occurs that transcends time and space. It is not merely a ritual or symbol, it is a cosmic event, a momentary thinning of the veil between heaven and earth, what I call the divine portal. During these precious seconds, grace flows more abundantly than at any other moment in ordinary time. Do you understand the immense tragedy of remaining distracted, unprepared, or silent during this moment? It would be like standing before an open treasury, invited to take whatever you need, yet turning your back or falling asleep instead. Through prayer and divine revelation, I have identified the 5 fatal errors Catholics unknowingly commit during the sacred elevation, errors that block heaven's most powerful graces and leave the soul vulnerable to spiritual attack. I tremble to think how many blessings have been lost through generations because of these mistakes. The first error is distraction. When the priest elevates the host, countless minds wander to mundane concerns, work problems, family conflicts, physical discomforts, or simply daydreaming. I once saw a vision of a businessman mentally reviewing contracts during elevation. Around him swirled golden streams of grace, but they could not penetrate the barrier of his distracted mind. These graces, meant specifically for his life's heaviest burdens, returned to heaven unused. For 3 generations, his family struggled with the very problems these graces were meant to resolve. The second error is routine emptiness. Many attend Mass for years, decades even, yet approach the elevation with empty ritual gestures, a mechanical bow of the head, an automatic sign of the cross, while their hearts remain unmoved. Their lips may whisper traditional prayers, but their souls are not present. I was shown a woman who had attended daily Mass for 40 years. She consistently made the sign of the cross during elevation, but never truly engaged her heart. Though she received communion faithfully, the transformative power remained dormant within her. At her judgment, she was shown the mountain of unused graces that could have transformed her family for generations. The third error is posture of closure. Your physical disposition reflects and influences your spiritual openness. Many sit with arms crossed, bodies slumped, eyes wandering around the church instead of fixed on the elevated host. This physical closure creates a spiritual barrier. The angels showed me how souls who kneel with hands open in a gesture of reception during elevation receive substantially more grace than those physically closed off. Your body is not separate from your soul. It is its outward expression and instrument. The fourth error is silence without offering. Remaining in reverent silence can be beautiful, but empty silence without interior movement is a missed opportunity. During elevation, Christ offers himself completely, yet many fail to make any offering in return. I witnessed a vision of Jesus looking down from the elevated host, asking souls, "What will you give me?" Most had nothing to offer because they never considered bringing their gifts, struggles, and intentions to this powerful moment. The fifth and most devastating error is ignorance of the opportunity. Most Catholics have never been taught the immense spiritual power available during these few seconds of elevation. They do not know that prayers offered at this moment carry special efficacy. They are unaware that spiritual healing, conversion of loved ones, and profound inner transformation can be initiated during this brief window when heaven and earth converge. This ignorance leaves souls begging for assistance throughout their days, while ignoring the most powerful moment of divine availability. What truly happens during the elevation that makes it so crucial for your spiritual life? I will now reveal what few souls understand about this sacred moment. When the priest elevates the consecrated host, three supernatural events occur simultaneously, what I call the triple mystery of the divine portal. First, time itself is mysteriously suspended. Though it appears to last mere seconds in human experience, this moment creates an eternal now, a brief intersection with God's timelessness. This is why prayers offered during elevation can affect events that occurred years ago or have yet to happen. During my years of celebrating Mass, I often experienced this temporal suspension where seconds stretched into what felt like hours of intimate communion. Second, the distance between heaven and earth collapses. The elevated host becomes a doorway through which celestial power flows unimpeded into our material world. In my mystical experiences, I've witnessed how the boundaries between dimensions thin dramatically during elevation. Angels and saints draw extraordinarily close. The souls in purgatory receive special relief. Even the physical space around the altar becomes charged with supernatural energy, while many experience unusual sensations of heat, light, or heaviness during this moment. Third, Christ's sacrifice on Calvary becomes present, not just symbolically but actually. We are transported spiritually to the foot of the cross, given the opportunity to unite our offerings with his perfect sacrifice. Once during Mass, I was granted a vision where the church walls disappeared, revealing Calvary itself, the elevated host transformed into Christ crucified, his blood flowing down upon the congregation. Those who looked up with faith and love were cleansed and transformed. Those distracted or indifferent remained untouched by this torrent of mercy. This divine portal creates the most potent opportunity for spiritual exchange in ordinary Christian life. It is the moment when prayers for impossible situations become possible, spiritual bondages can be broken with unusual ease, deep inner healing can begin with a single sincere request, generational patterns can be interrupted and transformed, divine guidance is received with exceptional clarity. I once knew a woman whose son had abandoned the faith and fallen into destructive addictions. For 7 years, she prayed novenas and sought help from various priests, including myself. One day I was inspired to tell her, at the next Mass when the host is elevated, place your son spiritually upon the paten alongside the bread. Make a specific plea for his return to faith, then release him completely to Christ. She followed this counsel with great faith. Within 3 weeks, her son unexpectedly returned home, asked to go to confession, and began the journey of recovery. Why did her previous years of prayer seem ineffective, while this single moment of elevation produced such dramatic results? Because during the elevation, the barriers between spiritual and material realms grow exceptionally thin. Christ's power flows more directly, unimpeded by the usual limitations of time and space. Consider this moment as the spiritual equivalent of a cosmic alignment. When heaven and earth stand in perfect relation, creating a direct channel for grace. Those who understand this alignment can position their most important intentions precisely in this channel, ensuring maximum spiritual impact. Few realize that a fierce spiritual battle rages for your attention during the elevation. My stigmata would often burn most intensely at this moment of Mass, as I perceived this supernatural conflict unfolding. On one side stand your guardian angel and the angels of the Eucharist, celestial beings whose sole purpose during elevation is to help direct your attention to Christ. They whisper to your spirit, gently nudge your consciousness, and attempt to clear away distractions. I've witnessed these faithful servants working tirelessly to create a sacred space in the minds of believers, even physically positioning themselves to block sensory distractions from reaching your awareness. On the opposing side, forces of spiritual darkness employ specific tactics to divert your attention precisely during these critical seconds. They know the power available during elevation and work systematically to ensure you miss this opportunity for transformation. Their methods are predictable yet effective. First, they introduce a cascade of unrelated thoughts, suddenly bringing to mind work tasks, family conflicts, or personal insecurities. These thoughts feel random, but are strategically timed to capture your attention. Second, they amplify physical discomforts, making you acutely aware of how hard the pew feels, how your back aches, or how the temperature seems uncomfortable. These sensations existed moments before but went unnoticed until they were magnified to distract you. Third, they draw your attention to others around you. The crying child, the person coughing, the latecomers finding seats. These environmental distractions become captivating precisely when your focus should be directed toward the elevated host. Fourth, they induce a sudden heaviness or drowsiness that descends without warning. Many faithful Catholics who are otherwise alert throughout Mass find themselves fighting unusual fatigue, specifically during consecration. Finally, they whisper that this moment isn't special, that the elevation is merely ceremonial, that your individual prayer can wait until a more convenient time. This lie is perhaps their most effective tactic. I once counseled a devout woman troubled by persistent distractions during Mass. "Father Pio," she confessed, "my mind is clear during readings and the homily, but the moment the priest elevates the host, I'm flooded with worries, memories, and random thoughts. Am I doing something wrong?" I explained this was not her failure, but evidence of the spiritual battle for her attention during this crucial moment. To demonstrate this reality, I asked her to observe exactly when these distractions occurred during her next Mass. She returned, astonished. The distractions begin precisely at the elevation and subside immediately after communion, exactly when the most sacred moments occur. This is not coincidence, but coordination, a strategic effort to prevent you from receiving what heaven offers during these sacred seconds. The Book of Revelation speaks of the dragon waiting to devour the child as soon as it was born. Similarly, the enemy of your soul waits to devour the graces born in the moment of elevation before they can take root in your life. Understanding this battle changes everything. Now, when distractions come during elevation, recognize them as confirmation of this moment's importance rather than evidence of your spiritual inadequacy. The intensity of opposition reveals the value of what's being protected. Through years of mystical experience and divine guidance, I developed what I call the triple encounter method, a powerful approach to the moment of elevation that can transform your experience of Mass forever. This method has helped countless souls break through spiritual blockages and access the extraordinary graces available during this sacred moment. The method consists of 3 synchronized movements of the soul, each flowing naturally into the next within the brief span of the elevation. I will guide you through each step, sharing exactly what to do when the priest raises the consecrated host. The first movement is recognition. The instant the host is elevated, make a deliberate act of faith in Christ's real presence. Silently declare, "My Lord and my God, I believe you are truly here." This recognition activates spiritual sight beyond physical appearance. In my mystical experiences, I've seen how this simple act of faith creates an immediate connection between the soul and Christ. It's like establishing eye contact with the divine, acknowledging that beneath the appearance of bread stands the King of Kings looking directly at you. The second movement is surrender. After recognition comes the offering of yourself. As the host remains elevated, immediately present your greatest need, deepest wound, or most troubling situation. Do this by visualizing yourself placing it upon the altar alongside Christ's sacrifice. Say interiorly, "Jesus, I surrender to you," specific situation or person. Transform this as you transform the bread into your body. This surrender must be complete, not merely asking for help but releasing all control, all anxiety about outcomes. The third movement is reception. As the host is lowered, expand your soul in expectation. Imagine yourself as an empty vessel being filled with divine light and strength. Silently pray, "I receive your grace for this situation. It is done." This receptivity creates spiritual capacity. Just as a sail must be unfurled to catch the wind, your soul must be open to receive what heaven offers. Many Catholics ask but never position themselves to receive, remaining closed through doubt, unworthiness, or simple unawareness. What makes this method so effective is that it engages your entire being, intellect through recognition, will through surrender, and spirit through reception. It creates a complete circuit of grace between you and Christ. A businessman once came to me, his company facing bankruptcy after 20 years of successful operation. Following my guidance, he applied the triple encounter method during Mass for 9 consecutive days, surrendering his business situation during each elevation. On the 10th day, he received an unexpected call from a former client who offered a partnership that not only saved his company, but expanded it beyond previous success. When I asked what he experienced during those elevation moments, he replied, "Initially, nothing extraordinary, just the discipline of following your instructions. But around the 6th day, I felt an unusual peace during the surrender step. By the 9th day, I knew with certainty that the situation was already resolved, though nothing had changed externally." This progression, from faithful practice to inner certainty before external manifestation, is typical of how the triple encounter method works. The outer circumstances often align with the inner reality that has already been established during elevation. Practice this method consistently, and you will discover its transformative power in your life. The effects build over time, creating deeper channels for grace with each elevation. Throughout my years of spiritual direction, I've witnessed extraordinary transformations in souls who learned to properly engage with the moment of elevation. Allow me to share 7 remarkable testimonies that reveal the power available in these sacred seconds. Maria, a mother of 4, had prayed for years for her husband's conversion. He would attend Mass to please her, but remained spiritually indifferent. After learning about the divine portal, she focused entirely on him during each elevation for 33 consecutive days. On day 34, without prompting, her husband asked to go to confession for the first time in 22 years. Later, he confided, "I don't know what happened, but during Mass I suddenly saw how empty my life was without God. It was like scales falling from my eyes." A young physician named Alessandro suffered from debilitating anxiety that medication couldn't fully control. During spiritual direction, I taught him to specifically surrender his nervous system during the elevation, imagining Christ's peace flowing directly into this part of his physiology. Within 6 weeks, his symptoms decreased so significantly that his doctor reduced his medication. "The anxiety doesn't completely disappear," he told me, "but now there's a center of calm I can access that wasn't there before." Elderly Lucia had carried bitterness toward her sister for over 40 years, following a family inheritance dispute. Their relationship had been severed despite living in the same small village. After learning about the power of elevation, Lucia began deliberately placing this relationship before Christ at this moment. What's remarkable isn't just that reconciliation eventually occurred, but that Lucia experienced interior healing before any external circumstances changed. "One day during elevation," she shared, "I suddenly saw the situation through my sister's eyes and felt a compassion I hadn't known in decades." A parish priest implemented teaching about the elevation in his small rural church. Within months, Mass attendance increased by 30%. When asked what brought them back, many responded that Mass had become a completely different experience. "Before, I was going through motions," one man explained. "Now I understand something real and powerful happens at that altar. I wouldn't miss it for anything." Giovanni, a recovering alcoholic, struggled with periodic relapses despite years in a support program. I advised him to focus specifically on his addiction during elevation, surrendering his brain chemistry and triggers to Christ. He created a consistent practice. At the elevation, he he would visualize placing his addiction on the altar and receiving sobriety in exchange. After 6 months of this practice at daily Mass, he reported, "The physical craving isn't completely gone, but there's now a split-second pause between urge and action that wasn't there before. In that pause, I find the strength to choose differently." A mother of a child with developmental challenges faithfully practiced elevation prayer for her daughter's condition. While complete healing didn't occur, she experienced what she called the miracle of perspective. During one elevation, as she surrendered her daughter completely to Christ, she received an extraordinary grace of seeing her child as God sees her, not defined by limitations, but radiantly perfect in her essence. This perspective transformed their relationship and brought a peace that had eluded her for years. Perhaps most moving was Antonio, diagnosed with terminal cancer and given months to live. Rather than praying for physical healing during elevation, he surrendered his fear of death. "Each time the host is raised," he told me, "I practice dying a little, releasing my attachments, my anxiety about leaving loved ones, my fear of pain." When his passing came 9 months later, significantly beyond medical expectations, the hospice nurse remarked she had never seen someone die with such peace and readiness. These testimonies share a common thread. The elevation became a precisely focused moment of genuine spiritual exchange, not vague devotion, but specific surrender and reception. None of these individuals experienced magical, instantaneous transformation. Rather, they discovered that consistent practice of focused engagement during elevation created channels through which grace could progressively flow into particular situations. The physical and spiritual posture you adopt during elevation significantly impacts your capacity to receive available graces. Based on celestial revelations granted to me, I will now share the optimal approach to this sacred moment. First, consider your physical disposition. While church regulations differ regarding kneeling or standing during consecration, what matters most is your interior alertness and exterior reverence. If health permits, kneeling provides a powerful bodily expression of adoration. The angels once showed me how souls who kneel with back straight and head slightly bowed create a physical channel aligned with spiritual receptivity. Your hands should be open, either extended slightly or resting open on your lap, never clenched, crossed, or occupied with other objects. This open-handed posture symbolizes and facilitates receptivity. I once observed during Mass how divine light flowed more abundantly toward those whose hands were physically open in a gesture of receiving. Your eyes must be fixed on the elevated host, not wandering around the church or closed in private devotion. This visual connection is more important than many realize. The eyes are spiritual gateways. Looking directly at the elevated host with faith establishes a circuit of grace. In Scripture, many miracles began with the command to look or see. During elevation, Christ silently issues this same invitation: "Look upon me and be saved." Your breathing can become a spiritual instrument during this moment. As the host is raised, take a slow, deep breath, imagining you are breathing in Christ's presence. Hold this breath briefly during the elevation's peak, then release it slowly as the host is lowered, symbolizing your surrender. This conscious breathing creates a physiological state that supports spiritual awareness. Now, regarding the ideal prayer during elevation, I received this specific guidance through mystical revelation. The prayer should follow a clear 3-part structure corresponding to the triple encounter method. As the priest begins to elevate the host, pray with all your heart. "My Lord and my God, I believe you are truly present, body, blood, soul, and divinity." Recognition. At the height of elevation, immediately continue. "I surrender to you." Name specific situation, person, or need. Transform this completely as you transform the bread. Surrender. As the host is lowered, conclude, "I receive your divine power for this intention. Thank you for answering according to your perfect will." Reception. This entire prayer takes only moments, but creates a complete spiritual circuit. The specificity of your surrender is crucial. Name exactly what you are placing before Christ, being as concrete as possible. Instead of general requests like, "Help my family," specify, "Heal the conflict between my son and daughter," or "Provide for our unexpected medical expenses." One obstacle many face is remembering to prepare their specific intention before elevation. The moment arrives suddenly, and unprepared souls scramble to decide what to surrender. I recommend deciding before Mass begins exactly what you will offer during elevation. Some faithful souls keep a small notebook of intentions specifically for this moment. Remember that the most powerful focus is not on many requests, but on a single specific surrender made with complete faith. A scattered approach that attempts to include numerous intentions often diminishes the spiritual power of this moment. Concentrate your spiritual energy on one significant need, trusting that as this primary issue is addressed, many secondary concerns will naturally resolve. Practice this method daily if possible. While Sunday Mass is the foundation of Catholic observance, those who can attend weekday Masses create a cumulative effect through consistent practice of elevation prayer. Just as daily physical exercise produces results invisible after a single session, daily engagement with the elevation builds spiritual capacity over time. Through divine revelation, I've been shown that specific spiritual blockages can prevent souls from fully engaging with the elevation, even when they sincerely attempt to follow the methods I've outlined. These blockages must be identified and removed for the divine portal to function effectively in your spiritual life. The first and most common blockage is unconfessed serious sin. The state of your soul affects your spiritual receptivity. I once counseled a man who faithfully practiced elevation prayers, yet experienced no results. Through spiritual insight, I discerned he carried unconfessed sins, creating a barrier between his soul and Christ's graces. After proper confession, the blockage dissolved, and his elevation prayers began bearing fruit immediately. Examine your conscience sincerely. Are you carrying burdens that should be released through the sacrament of reconciliation? The second blockage is intellectual doubt regarding the real presence. Many Catholics attend Mass without truly believing Christ is physically present in the Eucharist. This doubt creates a spiritual interference that limits grace during elevation. The angels showed me how souls struggling with doubt receive significantly diminished light during this moment. To address this blockage, pray specifically for the gift of faith before Mass. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. Study the Eucharistic miracles approved by the Church. Ask saints particularly devoted to the Eucharist to intercede for your faith. The third blockage involves emotional wounds associated with religious settings. Some souls carry traumatic experiences connected to church, authority figures, or God himself. These wounds create an unconscious withdrawal during sacred moments like elevation. One woman I counseled discovered her inability to focus during elevation stemmed from childhood experiences where religion was used punitively. Through prayers for inner healing specifically directed at these memories, she gradually opened to the elevation's grace. The fourth blockage is spiritual warfare, direct interference from evil forces during this sacred moment. Earlier, I described how the enemy targets your attention during elevation. Some souls experience this opposition more intensely, especially when beginning to engage more deeply with this practice. Recognize that increased spiritual attack often confirms you're moving in the right direction. Counter this interference with preparation before Mass. Pray for angelic protection of your attention specifically during elevation. The fifth blockage is sensory overload and mental fragmentation from modern living. Many souls arrive at Mass with minds so shattered by noise, screens, and constant stimulation that quieting themselves for even a few moments feels impossible. This contemporary condition severely limits elevation engagement. Begin preparing at least 1 hour before Mass. Disconnect from devices, create silence, and perhaps read scripture briefly to center your mind. The sixth blockage is ritual familiarity, the tendency to experience sacred realities as routine when repeatedly encountered. After years of attending Mass, many view the elevation as just another part of a familiar ceremony. This familiarity anesthetizes the soul to the extraordinary nature of what's occurring. Combat this by intentionally approaching each Mass with beginner's mind, imagining you are witnessing the elevation for the first time. The seventh blockage is unworthiness and shame, feeling you don't deserve direct contact with Christ due to your sinfulness. While humility before God is appropriate, excessive shame becomes a barrier to receiving grace. Remember that elevation is precisely when Christ offers himself to sinners. Your unworthiness is the very reason you need this moment, not a reason to withdraw from it. To systematically remove these blockages, I recommend a spiritual preparation I call the 7-day elevation renewal. For 1 week before receiving communion, focus on removing one blockage each day through specific prayers, reflections, and actions. Many souls who complete this renewal report extraordinary new freedom in experiencing the divine portal. I must now speak with solemn gravity about what happens when souls consistently ignore or remain passive during the elevation. The spiritual consequences are far more severe than most realize. In a profound mystical experience, I was shown how each elevation creates a specific appointment with grace, a divinely orchestrated opportunity for spiritual exchange that exists in God's eternal plan for your life. Each time this appointment is missed through distraction or neglect, several serious consequences unfold. First, spiritual protection weakens progressively. The elevation is when Christ's sacrificial blood is most available for your spiritual covering and defense. Those who engage properly with this moment receive a particular shield against demonic attack. I witnessed in vision how souls who consistently neglected the elevation gradually lost layers of protection, becoming increasingly vulnerable to spiritual interference. Their thoughts, emotions, and decisions became more easily manipulated by negative influences they could not perceive. Second, interior spiritual senses atrophy. Just as unused physical muscles weaken over time, your spiritual faculties for perceiving divine realities diminish when repeatedly unstimulated. The elevation is precisely designed to exercise these faculties. I counseled numerous Catholics who complained they felt nothing during Mass, unaware this numbness resulted from years of passive non-engagement during the very moments meant to activate their spiritual senses. Third, sacramental graces remain stored rather than activated. This concept is crucial to understand. Receiving communion provides sacramental grace, but fully engaging with the elevation activates this grace within specific life situations. I was shown souls who received communion faithfully for decades, yet carried within them vast reservoirs of unactivated grace, like having a medicine cabinet full of powerful remedies never actually applied to wounds. Fourth, generational blessings remain untransmitted. During elevation, you have unique authority to release blessings to family members, living, deceased, and yet unborn. When this moment passes unused, graces meant for your lineage remain suspended. I once guided a family experiencing persistent difficulties across generations. When they began intentionally engaging with the elevation, praying specifically for their bloodline, long-standing patterns of dysfunction began resolving within months. Fifth, specific divine appointments are missed. The angels revealed how God orchestrates precise timings when particular graces become available during elevation for specific situations. These moments of divine coordination don't automatically repeat. Like cosmic alignments that occur at exact times, certain spiritual opportunities appear during specific elevations and then may not recur in the same form. This is why I urge souls to approach every Mass as a unique, unrepeatable spiritual event. Sixth, spiritual hunger diminishes. Perhaps most tragically, consistent neglect of the elevation gradually extinguishes your desire for divine encounter. The soul becomes accustomed to a malnourished state. Many Catholics who attend Mass by obligation rather than hunger have unwittingly trained themselves into this condition through years of inattentive participation, particularly during elevation. Seventh, the communal power of the Church weakens. Each soul who engages properly with the elevation contributes to a collective spiritual current that strengthens the entire body of Christ. Every distracted or passive participant slightly diminishes this current. The cumulative effect of widespread elevation neglect explains much of the Church's diminished spiritual power in modern times. If you recognize your own patterns in this sobering list, do not despair. Divine mercy specializes in restoration. The very next elevation you experience can begin reversing years of neglect. A single, fully engaged elevation creates more spiritual impact than dozens of Masses attended in distraction. Begin today. Approach your next Mass with this new understanding. The graces previously missed remain available in new forms for those who turn with sincere hearts to this sacred moment. My spiritual children, as I conclude this urgent message, I invite you to enter what I call the covenant of elevation. a sacred commitment to engage fully with this powerful moment in every Mass you attend for the remainder of your earthly journey. This covenant consists of 7 solemn promises that will transform your experience of Mass and gradually reshape your entire spiritual life. First, I will prepare specifically for the elevation before each Mass, selecting one significant intention to surrender completely to Christ in this moment. Second, I will resist all distractions during elevation, immediately redirecting my attention when it wanders, recognizing that the battle for my focus reveals this moment's importance. Third, I will engage my entire being, body, mind, soul, and spirit, through proper posture, visual connection, and the triple encounter prayer method. Fourth, I will maintain a journal recording the intentions surrendered during elevation and the subsequent unfolding of grace in these situations. Fifth, I will share this understanding with at least 3 others, becoming a channel through which this lost knowledge returns to the faithful. Sixth, I will approach each elevation as entirely unique, never allowing familiarity to diminish my awareness of the extraordinary nature of this moment. Seventh, I will participate in at least 1 additional weekday Mass monthly, specifically to create more opportunities for elevation engagement. Those who embrace this covenant often experience what I call the elevation awakening, a profound shift in spiritual sensitivity that gradually extends beyond Mass into everyday life. As you consistently engage with the divine portal during elevation, your capacity to perceive Christ's presence in other circumstances also increases. Many report heightened awareness of divine timing, stronger spiritual intuition, and more effective prayers outside of Mass. I witnessed this transformation in countless souls during my earthly ministry. One businessman who embraced the covenant of elevation told me after 6 months, "Father, I now experience moments throughout my day that feel like mini-elevations, sudden awareness of Christ's presence in meetings, family conversations, even while driving. It's as if the boundary between sacred and ordinary is dissolving. This is precisely what should happen. The elevation becomes not just a moment in Mass, but a pattern of divine encounter that replicates throughout your life. The sacred gradually permeates the secular until this distinction itself begins to fade." If my words have stirred your heart today, I urge you to respond in 3 specific ways. First, write in the comments below, "Father, I accept the call." This public declaration strengthens your commitment and encourages others who read it. Second, implement what you've learned at the very next Mass you attend. Don't delay or overthink this practice. The method is simple enough for a child, yet profound enough for the most advanced souls. Third, return to this teaching before attending Mass until these practices become natural to you. Spiritual transformation requires repetition until new patterns are established. I now extend my blessing to all who have received this message with open hearts. May Christ, who offers himself in the elevation, fill you with his presence, power, and peace. May your eyes be opened to see the divine portal before you. May generations of your family be touched by the graces you release during these sacred moments. Remember always, what happens during those brief seconds of elevation can transform everything, if only you are truly present to receive it. Until we meet in the next message, keep your gaze fixed upon Christ, elevated for your salvation.